Welcome to YouBook channel. Read and listen to the greatest stories that mankind has ever told. From Iliad to Covid Terror, and other famous classics. Enjoy the best world literatures throughout history.
Covid Terror. Copyright 2021 by Gerry de Cadiz. All rights reserved. A unified Al-Qaeda and Islamic State took advantage of the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic in reinvigorating its jihadist cause for dominance and the re-establishment of a caliphate. COVID-19 whistleblower, Dr. Li Wenliang, said, "It has been confirmed that they are coronavirus infections, but the exact virus strain is being subtyped."
Covid Terror. Chapter 9.
Zulfikar Resort, Los Angeles, California. January 11, 2020. Ahmed Fadil has been fascinated with John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and how the former US president stood fast against the bullying of Russia during the Cold War. With scientific advancement, JFK logically illustrated the ability of mankind to design a kind of society where everyone will progress and live contentedly, while at the same time, with weapons of mass destruction, reminding everyone man's capability to destroy the entire human race. From the time he started residing in America, Ahmed learned to adapt to the culture of the place. Right after New Year, celebrations still abound everywhere. But while ordinary folks would enjoy an extended holiday, businesses are well occupied with evaluating their inventory, and plotting out the best way to capture and take advantage of the market in the coming months. For a multi-billion corporation, the tasks are left for middle managers to implement what the board of directors decided as a strategy. In particular, the Khalifa rather devote his time to other endeavors, such as finalizing the establishment of his caliphate. Amir, our brothers wanted to be provided with the logistics to facilitate the travel of Dr. Amira Siddiqui from China back to the US. Ayman Kalimpov informed the Khalifa of an emergency dispatch, regarding on the manner of extracting Siddiqui from Wuhan, where she conducted the bioweapon experiments related to the 2019 nCoV virus. The communications officer further suggested, it's best if the team will be splitted, one for the companions of Dr. Siddiqui while another will look after the scientist. I concur with the recommendation, Amir. The operations officer Abdul Najib outlined his plan of action. All I want is for the safe passage of Lady Al-Qaeda back to the US, as soon as possible. Ahmed firmly made known his point.
Our brothers must recover the journal I lost along the way. There are very important notes that should not be turned over to authorities, as it could incriminate me in our cell. Huddled in the basement of an apartment block for Muslim immigrants, Amira Siddiqui implored Ahmed to direct the staff of Al-Khifa Refugee Center to search and recover some personal effects and literary items that were left behind in her haste to leave her apartment. She received a tip from a former student about an impending raid by agents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They're on their way. Ahmed holds her hand for comfort. She's newly divorced, and since then, Amira frequently comes to him for protection. But her recent brush-offs with federal authorities on terrorism issues is something too risky for the Muslim communities in the West. Much more to him. He did a very meticulous preparation when he decided to try his luck in the US. In late 2001, he had to endure a painful transformation, in a circuitous way, even before stepping on the tarmac of John F. Kennedy International Airport for the first time. In establishing a reputation as a legitimate businessman and investor, there is a need for a physical alteration. To accomplish this, he has to pay some rogue commanders of the Burmese army for a kidnapping episode, when he visited some mountain resorts along the Thai border. 3 months later, no one could recognize anymore that the once tattooed and brusque tourist has become a fair and well-groomed gentleman. thanks to the country's top caliber medical procedures for body transformation and facelifting, mostly located in secretive clinics in the hinterlands, not a single mark was left by the laser operations. A week in Macau for some pre-arranged gambling spree with high rollers enabled him to amass a huge fortune. Even if the International Criminal Police Organization would investigate the paper trails, the management's book of accounts and CCTVs in those casinos could provide the evidences that Ahmed was just a very lucky guy who oftentimes hit the jackpot. Due to its standing as the friendliest country in ease of doing business, Ahmed registered an export-import enterprise for retail merchandise in Auckland. The country's well-organized economy provides indicators that makes starting a business very inspiring. These include dealing with construction permits, getting electricity, registering property, getting credit, protecting minority investors, paying taxes, trading across borders, enforcing contracts, and resolving insolvency. An initially declared $25 million investment capital was raised 3 times when the company diversified into real estate, especially for the young professionals of New Zealand. 3 years later, the company evolved into a multinational corporation and, with additional investment portfolio and line of businesses, started gaining a foothold in Europe and in the Americas. The early post-9/11 is not a good time for anyone in the US having Islam as religion in a biodata. Newly arrived to the States, Ahmed knew that he is in grave danger of being arrested if he comes under suspicion. He came here to establish an initial status as a Middle Eastern entrepreneur trying to expand his market. Similar to what he did in New Zealand, he knows that a good reputation must be cultivated to operate a profitable business in a foreign land. But he was marked by FBI agents as an alien resident, even if he is a CEO of a Pacific-based corporation that is publicly listed in the New York Stock Exchange, with a gross asset amounting to about $15 billion. Despite the identity of being a Qatari in his passport, and a highly sought philanthropist, Ahmed is still required to appear before an FBI field office every month, and submit a detailed report of his activities in the United States. His application for citizenship was scrapped so many times by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. However, his assumed persona helped a lot. Through a well-placed intermediary from the Qatari palace, Ahmed was deputized as special trade advisor to the U.S. by no less than the cousin of the ruling emir. As STA, he officially reports directly to the Qatar Investment Authority. To gain the confidence of the Americans to invest in the oil-rich country, Ahmed was given an order to expand his business interests. If necessary, he can secure an additional investment capital from various partners of QIA. This became the push for him to make an alibi in relocating his corporate headquarters to the U.S. The fact that the oil-rich state houses 2 American military bases make it convenient for Ahmed to secure some business franchises to start with. By 2003, almost 75% of his current industrial portfolio have been founded, and were operating in a sustained and lucrative manner. The presidential election in 2004 is a turning point in his social status. Representatives from both parties solicited for contributions for the incoming campaigns. Subsequently, he devised a way in which monetary donations will come from a secret bank account overseas, and deposited directly to the name of the top nominee. Ahmed thought that a total of $15 million assistance for both parties is not a bad investment. Amira was handed with a Cathay Pacific ticket for a connecting flight from New York to Mactan International Airport in the Philippines. Ahmed hoped that she can depart from the U.S. tonight without any interference from authorities. A Muslim charity institution in Mindanao had already made an arrangement to make it appear that she is visiting the organization for a new livelihood project sponsored by the Al-Qaeda Refugee Center. Allah be praised. You've been a true brother to me. Amira strongly embraced Ahmed. You know that I will do anything to help you. He knows that in the near future, this highly intellectual scientist will provide a bigger service to the Muslim world.
A green-colored satellite phone blinked for about 5 seconds. Placed inside a locked desk drawer, it is connected to a customized application in a laptop. Retrieving the phone from its holder, Ahmed saw on screen a number identified as QV. The last time he talked with its distinguished caller barely 2 months ago, a $150 million deal was agreed upon, for delivery of a material that will advance the jihadist goals. Ahmed checked on the settings of the phone to make sure that it is working in dark mode, which means that the communications satellite handling the transmission is scrambling the words as machine codes and bouncing off the signals in different stations, to avoid detection of the receiver's location by any surveillance system. General, are you calling from the dead? Ahmed is always suspicious for any call coming from this phone while trying to sound neutral. Amir, it's been more than a decade the last time I called you. A woman's voice is barely audible. It sounded hollow due to digital scrambling. What was the color of my coat, the last time we saw each other? Although he can tell who the caller is, but it's important to be assured of her true identity. If she's in captivity and being forced to make the call, obviously, she will say the wrong answer. You're not wearing a coat at that time. She recalled being driven by Ahmed himself up to the departure area with only a ticket, her phone, wallet, and some personal effects in a clutch bag. Before the plane got out of telecom signal range, she got a text message from him, that the Al-Qaeda refugee center was raided by FBI operatives. Amira, you got in that plane in the nick of time. He doesn't have any sentimental attachment to her, although they've been sharing his room for some time after her divorce. I learned what happened in Henan, he said. It was very unfortunate. I can't forget how Uncle treated me as his own daughter, and providing everything that I need. She uttered those words void of emotion. I don't have to spell out that what is happening right now in China has something to do with the experiment you carried out, just to prove the worth of the merchandise the general wants to sell. Since high school days, leading thugs up to the time ordering the executions of Zionist Westerners in recent years, Ahmed is very familiar with the practices of the underground and black market. Unlike within the conventional world, business here is transacted with all honesty and fairness. No one should dare to take advantage of the other, because it's your life that is at stake. When something is agreed upon, it has to be fulfilled. I called to signify that the deal is still on, with all the conditions intact. Ahmed chuckled to himself. The scientist is becoming an entrepreneur. He said, I concur. But how can you deliver the goods? That's the next thing. I have to make an arrangement with you. I am willing to lower the price into $125 million if we could be extracted here, and be given proper accommodation and a dignified work in your place. There may be some difficulties, but it could be done. You can keep the discount. As Lady Al-Qaeda, it's my obligation to protect you. He recalled his promise of doing anything for her. Besides, the operations could not be realized without her expertise. The warrior scientists at his disposal are unfamiliar with the new biogerm agent. Always my dependable brother. You're always by my side. Amira's voice of gratitude could not be hidden. Be ready for extraction in the next few days. A team of warriors will be on their way to your location. Just make sure that security protocols are followed. He has to offer an extra motivation for volunteers of Al-Qaeda elements in East Asia to do the job. Based on initial reports from the field, some PLA and Interpol units are hot on the heels of Amira and her companions. But what is worrisome is a burst transmission from a double agent at the Central Intelligence Agency, warning him about a certain company agent that was detected to be interested in the Pakistani scientist. Ahmed has been in the land of Uncle Sam in the last 16 years. He was able to visit every state for different personal and corporate functions. But it's always a pleasure, driving through the wildest and weirdest pit stops across the country. We might be able to make it in 3.5 hours. Abdul commented as he smoothly maneuvers through the desert the all-new Ford Territory, a stylish and spacious SUV with a panoramic moon roof, leather seats, 18-inch alloy wheels, and a touchscreen dashboard for driving or entertainment functions. The California countryside, interspersed with old-world atmosphere and cyber-inspired structures, features interesting and fun places to visit, in an otherwise barren and empty landscape. It is about 290 miles between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. If we drive straight through and encounter little traffic, then we will be in time for the title match between Pacquiao and Broner. Ahmed checked the GPS synchronized locator in the digital dashboard. He is an avid fan of the phenomenal boxer from the Philippines, as he never missed any event of the famous rags-to-riches-turned-politician, 8-division world champion. Billed as Return to Vegas, the Manny Pacquiao vs. Adrian Broner is a boxing match for the World Boxing Association welterweight championship at the MGM Grand Garden Arena. Amir, the reservation was confirmed. Mohammad Nazar, the one in charge of logistics, declared in the back seat. Before they left, he called the Skylofts at MGM Grand for one of the hotel's luxury lofts. The 3-bedroom adaptable residential space offers a gorgeous view through floor-to-ceiling glass windows of the Las Vegas Strip. Its setup is also ideal for close-in VIP security. Ahmed manipulated the territory's intuitive 10-inch in-vehicle infotainment system. Then, he opened the roof-mounted DVD system to activate the back seat's theater-like viewing screens. Putting on a headphone, he can experience a live streaming of ESPN's exclusive pay-per-view event, through the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring capabilities. We got a long drive to take. Maybe the undercard events will keep us awake. I should have learned my lessons in betting with you. I have the best odds, but you prevailed. Lawrence Kwan approached their table at the Marrakesh Mediterranean restaurant. Ahmed's group were having a fine dining at the place, featuring a romantic, tent-like setting serving fixed-price Moroccan menu, accompanied by live belly dancing. An associate of the ailing king of gambling Stanley Ho, the Macau billionaire businessman Kwan could not believe that his luck always dimmed whenever the Qatar billionaire is at the opposite side of the bet. I read my feng shui today. I sensed that my energy forces will harmonize with the surrounding environment. That's why Broner got the brunt of a hard-hitting southpaw of the Filipino. Ahmed grinned as he accepted from Kwan's companion a check with an amount of $50 million. Manny Pacquiao won the fight by unanimous decision, and retained his WBA welterweight title. As they re-entered their suite, Abdul Najib handed Ahmed his Samsung Galaxy Note 10. The recovery unit is on the move 29 miles east of the extraction point. Khala is just waiting for an opportunity to break out from the market, and merge with the unit. Islamophobia Today featured that Khala Bint Ali Zwar was a legendary Muslim warrior during the life of Muhammad and later a military leader. She has been described as one of the greatest female military leaders in history, and was once compared with Khalid bin Walid by the opponents in the battlefield. Khala is the code name assigned to Sixi, or Dr. Amira Siddiqui. It was earlier reported that her group has been on the move, from pursuing Chinese anti-terrorist police force and agents of the Ministry of State Security. Ensure the safety of Lady Al-Qaeda. The Emir's terse command means that everybody must coordinate their actions to achieve the goal. The reference to the moniker of Sixi is an indication of reminding the various commanders as to the importance of the scientist in the final operation. As you wish, Amir. A prompt reply from the operations officer. Ahmed's main strategist, Abdul Najib, is a very capable and intelligent commander from the Philippines. He is usually being seen playing the highly addictive Mobile Legends. Newly arrived warriors would comment that the Operaf is just busy with online gaming. Mach Prima Fauza described Mobile Legends, Bang Bang, as a multiplayer online battle arena game designed for mobile phones. The two opposing teams fight to reach and destroy the enemy's base, while defending their own base for control of a path, the 3 lanes known as top, middle, and bottom, which connects the bases. But unknown to intelligence agencies, the role-playing game was reprogrammed by an ISIS cyber warrior to simulate the hero's characteristics, actions, thoughts, strategies, and weapons by real agents. The topographic features or lanes and physical environment or bases were reflective of actual scenarios and events in the field of operations. In short, the Al-Qaeda commander can direct jihadist actions worldwide through an Android phone while lounging at the park, or taking a siesta within the comfort of a coffee shop. How are we doing in this project in terms of budget? Ahmed asked. We have a payable of $150 million to the credit of Khalifa. The facilities and equipment to be installed and the materials and reagents to be readied will cost something like $50 million. The operations and overhead cost for 2 months may reach up to $25 million. Another $25 million was allocated for weapons and other technologies. An accountant by profession, the finance officer Shawar Halabi spouted effortlessly with the numbers. Are we not too burdened with this budget? The leader is also a good manager, who always thought of fiscal sustainability. Amir, $250 million is just 5% of our current liquid assets. Ahmed is well aware that the average monthly accounts receivable of his organization from investments, collections, and contributions is about $100 million. So, we are settled then. When the merchandise from China arrives, no time shall be lost to set up the laboratory and proceed with production. Mianyang Sanshung has been her all-time favorite dish during winter in China. Spending nearly 5 years in this place had developed in her a love of the traditional gastronomic culture. For now, the 3 steaming dishes of Mianyang are perfect to counter the bone-rattling cold. Though it's 4 o'clock in the morning, but it seems like you're having a last supper, Furin. Mr. Fan commented as he continued to serve her with hot soups and local delicacies. You've read Dan Brown's Da Vinci Code? Amira Siddiqui answered by asking him between munch. A driver always have a lot of time while waiting for the boss. Reading helped me hone my understanding of the English language. Besides, the general would order me from time to time to meet some foreign nationals at the airport who can't speak Mandarin. He felt abandoned upon hearing the demise of General Gu, in the military operation initiated by the Ministry of State Security a month ago. Not to be understood as undermining his knowledge, she tried to placate him. More or less, it is similar. I may not be able to visit this place for a long time. She was referring to a dogmatic story in Christianity, of a dining event in 33 Anno Domini in Jerusalem that Jesus shared with his disciples, before he was turned over by the traitor Judas Iscariot to the authorities, for trial and crucifixion. The famous best-selling author twisted the story, to make it appear that one of the 12 followers, as depicted in Leonardo da Vinci's late 1490s mural painting in Milan L'Ultima Cena, is a lover of Christ named Mary Magdalene, and that the Merovingian kings of France were bloodline progeny. Yes, of the Son of God. Only this time, my disciples are gone, and I hope I won't be delivered for execution. Sixi could sense her very precarious situation. She knew that Chinese authorities are looking for her round the clock. Earlier this week, the Al-Qaeda recovery unit extracted Sharifia and Jian from their safe house, near the Huanan seafood wholesale market through backdoor channels among jihadist groups in the country. En route to the Middle East, they are expected to prepare the plan of their next phase of operations. Sixi tried to go along, but Ahmed called that it would be too risky as she's not properly trained in military fashion. His last words were, "You will travel in first class, as befitting of your status in our organization." Fan handed her an opened parcel. I picked it up last night, when the courier office was still open. I checked what's inside, and everything are there based on the instructions of Ahmed. With the death of his previous master, it was easy for the emir to recruit Fan to his services. It contained a China Southern non-stop flight ticket at 9:45 in the morning, to Leonardo da Vinci International Airport in Rome. The mayor just announced a lockdown starting at 10 o'clock this morning. That includes the suspension of all public transport by air, land, and water. Fan looks worried as he readied a backpack. What's that for? She asked the diminutive yet very agile man. You have to expect that as we speak, there is an exodus from this city due to the lockdown. You need to put all your things in this bag for easy carrying, and for convenience especially when running. She saw the wisdom of his words. Included in the parcel is a government paper, bearing the official letterhead and seal of the United States Department of State. In clear language, it expressed that American citizen Dr. Ellie Cindy Grimwood shall evacuate immediately due to health emergency in Wuhan, and must be provided with any available and proper transportation to a destination she so desires. It's originally signed by the U.S. Consul General, and countersigned with approval by the Chief of the Immigration Bureau of the People's Republic of China. The dry seals of the two countries are embossed and clearly visible. Sixi cannot believe what she's seeing. The document has an effect of being an exit visa for a new persona or identity to leave China with government permission. Trying to ascertain if everything is in order, she finds another item that is too good to be true. It is a navy blue booklet with the gold embossed words Passport and United States of America, and the U.S. Great Seal. Flipping it open, she saw a picture of herself in the last 3D disguise mask that Fan had taken when they were still in Henan. The basic profile says that she's born in Illinois, USA last May 11, 1976. Issued 5 years ago, her passport will expire on December 30, 2020. You must master that signature. Fan reminded her of the scribble at the inside cover with the bald eagle, the US flag and the words, "We the People," prominently displayed. A driver's license issued in Las Vegas for the same name, and bearing similar signature was tucked inside a pouch, along with a Visa credit card and a Bank of Nevada issued ATM card with the MasterCard logo. Also enclosed is a copy of the temporary pins for both cards, and a bank withdrawal receipt bearing a balance of $950,000. Despite the worrisome situation they're in at the moment, she can't help but smile upon seeing the last item on the parcel. Congratulations, Furin. Fan gave her a wide grin and a salute. An identification card of a newly established pharmaceutical laboratory in California identified Dr. Grimwood as principal researcher. The employment ID card bears the same signature as in the driver's license and passport. I wonder how much the entire package had cost. She mused. Of course, she is not new to this modus operandi. With the money and experts that Al-Qaeda possesses, it's not difficult to secure those documents. Perhaps, Ahmed's friends in high places may have facilitated the production of authentic government documents. We must hurry. You need to be inside the boarding area by 7 o'clock. An informant at the airport texted me that the aviation authority will close the gate earlier than expected, due to the surge of passengers. Fan started the engine of a black Toyota Land Cruiser. He discarded to a repair shop in Henan the Cadillac, to avoid tracing and detection by the police. I hope you can come to the US one of these days. You're so efficient, and you can be of great help in my researches. Sixi told Fan as she settled down in the back seat. Is it colder in the US than in China? He diverted the talk as he does not like being sentimental. I'm sure that you can easily adapt to our climate. Besides, you speak our language. She sensed his discomfort. But I think Ahmed would want you to stay here, and do some errands with the local boys. Sixi did not pursue the topic as Fan gave his full concentration on the road. As they traversed the Hanxi Expressway on the way to Wuhan Tianhe International Airport, Sixi leaned forward and said to Fan, "Will you do a special mission for me within this week?" "Furin, my loyalty is always to your uncle. So, I'm yours to command. I've been wondering lately, how did the Chinese police were informed that I was residing at the Gu Palace? They may have an inside agent. Espionage is a lucrative business here in China." Fan offered an explanation. It could be that our visit to the Huanan seafood wholesale market was noted by the vendor, when we left the pangolin to his care. Maybe, the Cadillac's registration was verified, and authorities connected the market where a lot of 2019 ANCO patients came from, to the car's owner. Sixi does not believe in coincidence. That may be true. It's not only the Chinese authorities that we have to worry about. Unknown to Sixi, he has a long history in military espionage. Fan slowed down on a curb as he explained further. I went back to the vendor. When I asked what happened later, he told me of getting sick 3 days after eating the pangolin. His family and neighbors in the market were infected too. Which means that our experiment was effective. Morality for her is defined and applied differently, versus to that of what is understood and accepted in other culture. She felt proud of her scientific investigation on SARS-CoV-2. I came to know that some foreigners visited him lately and asked something on the pangolin. But what is disturbing is the presence of a doctor from Wuhan Central Hospital, the one that the media reported, who posted on social media about the SARS virus. Fan continued, a day later, I observed a surveillance team in our hideout in Henan. That's why we came here in Wuhan, to avoid capture. That's the mission I want you to do for me. Handing him a thick envelope, she ordered. Use that to finance your operation. There is a risk that you'll be identified. So, eliminate the vendor, and the doctor, to tie loose ends. The driver is nowhere to be found. A shop owner in Henan confessed that the Cadillac was left for repair of its air conditioning system. The owner paid in advance with a hefty tip to the mechanic. An informant reported to SAGE. A surveillance team also recounted that the target persons of interest evaded detection. Back in Japan, he insisted on being updated of what is happening in China. The fact that Sixi escaped with the germ agent prototype is very worrisome. Be sure to reacquire the surveillance of Mr. Fan. He's the only lead we have to the scientist and her cohorts. But he has full of doubts. Based on the dossier sent to him from Langley, the driver is actually a MSS operative with specialization in counterespionage. He was employed by General Gu as a driver, but could be depended upon in tight situations. Sage is familiar with how specially trained agents will act. Obviously, the CIA surveillance team was detected, and by now, Fan's group could be holed up in any of the several safe houses the former PLA general may have maintained in the countryside. Much worse, they are already out of the country. We discussed the recommendations you sent us, about the findings you have of the virus. A senior WHO official confers with Dr. Guinevere Del Pilar, as they disembark from a Gulfstream G550 at Wuhan Tianhe Airport. I tested the specimen in several procedures, and the result is significantly similar. The 2019 ANCOV is characterized of having higher level of pathogenicity and transmissibility. If it cannot be managed properly, a pandemic will definitely ensue. Gwen seldom talk of doomsday if unnecessary. That's why you were requested by the Director General to be part of the team. You discover the virus and very familiar with it. The World Health Organization formed a delegation for a field visit to China on the 3rd week of January. Headed by the Director General, the mission was to learn about the response of the country to the novel coronavirus. Dr. Guinevere Del Pilar was given an invitation by the WHO to be part of the international team of leading scientists and medical experts that will collaborate with Chinese health authorities to better understand the context, overall response, and exchange information and experience of his emerging health crisis. Their first stop is Zhongnan Hospital of Wuhan University. Medical personnel helped everyone put PPS. One of them joked as a reminder, "You will be entering a danger zone. Please be careful." The Chinese officials, who are not used of medical suites, were uneasy and walked awkwardly. They visited a hastily constructed pre-isolation hall for 2019 ANCOV patients. This is where the probable case patients are initially placed upon arrival. The chief of hospital informed the group. She was referring to an 8 by 32 square meters receiving hall, divided into 12 partitions. Each cubicle is fully equipped with life support systems, and the required personnel protection equipment. Minister of Health Ma Xiaoyi closely inspected the instruments that are being used inside the room. She asked the COH, "What is your standard operating procedure? To minimize risk of infection among patients and healthcare workers, we have to communicate with patients before arriving for triage. Triage is sorting out and classification of patients or casualties, to determine priority of need and proper place of treatment." The chief continued, "We do it through hotline numbers that we established, in which patients can call or text for medical care due to 2019 nCoV symptoms. To avoid unnecessary hospitalization, patients are advised if there's a need to visit a healthcare facilities, as well as informing them of the preventive measures to be taken, if they do so." An American from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention motioned a thumbs up to the government officials from Beijing, as he surveyed the area. "I saw that this facility follows our standard operating procedure for triage." Gwen noted the setup and protocols being followed in the area. 2 sets of disinfection mats were positioned at the entrance, the only point of entry with a clear sign, directing patients with 2019 nCoV symptoms, to immediately report to the designated registration desk. A clear glass physical barrier separates the patient from the hospital staff recording the information at the reception table. Hand hygiene stations are available throughout the area. Posted in all directions are visual alerts about respiratory hygiene and cough etiquette, and social distancing of at least 1 meter. The COH pointed to the administrative personnel. These people were trained on how to perform hand hygiene, maintain appropriate distance, and on how to advise patients on the proper use of medical masks, hand hygiene, and separation from other patients. A standardized triage algorithm questionnaire is available for use, and that includes questions to determine if the patient meets the 2019 nCoV case definition. All medical personnel in the entourage can determine that the cubicles near the end of the hall are for physical evaluation of patients presenting with symptoms of the virus. Aside from their specializations, those physicians and nurses were highly trained on triage procedures, viral case definition, and appropriate personal protective equipment use. The chief concludes their tour. That big door with the sign 2019 nCoV ward leads to the treatment area of infected patients. For health reasons, we shall not dare enter that room. Anyway, you have already seen many times on TV, what it looks like inside a coronavirus isolation chamber. The COVID-19 pandemic was unexpected and unprecedented in our time. Ordinary citizens primarily became the adversely affected sector, with the ensuing quarantines and lockdowns. The fear of everyone was manifested when various countries implemented their health protocols. Anywhere in the world, the economic lockdown led to a reported increase in violence and lack of food supply, especially in poor countries. Healthcare systems became overloaded with positive cases, and the consequence was a gloomy condition, not only that the general public were infected, but healthcare workers and other frontliners became victims too. Psychiatrists warned that with the global panic, a lot of people will experience mental health consequences, even after the pandemic is over. All anxiety will come to the fore, especially those who were subjected to violence for minor violation of quarantine protocols, the loss of livelihood, and separation of family members. Despite the advice from the World Health Organization, for government agencies to balance overcoming both health and economic crisis, which must mitigate the impact to places that were subjected to lockdowns. A concrete plan needs to be at hand, to ensure the pandemic won't trigger financial, debt or currency crises. It can be observed that those countries which recorded high number of cases were at a loss how to facilitate a quick recovery program. The worst situation was when despotic leaders used the COVID-19 pandemic to exert a strong hand in controlling the populace. This happened in many instances, from the national level down to local government units. The ultimate consequence was the very fast increase in number of infected people, particularly those at risks, like the elderly whose age were over 60 years old, and those with underlying medical conditions such as patients with diabetes, chronic respiratory disease, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. Conspirationalists and some religious fanatics even contend that the COVID-19 pandemic is a manifestation of the end of time, as declared in Revelation chapter 6 verse 7-8 of the Bible, wherein the rider of the pale horse, in the four horsemen of the apocalypse, is death. The color of Thanatos' horse was seen to be ashen, pale green, and yellowish green, which were interpreted by scholars as reflecting the sickly pallor of a corpse. Based on ancient medical literature, the Greek word for plague is patently connected with the fourth horseman. Within a few months, the more than 1 million deaths worldwide are indeed an indication that SARS-CoV-2 virus is the harbinger of apocalyptic socio-economic and political disruptions, and the cessation of human life, with the COVID-19 pandemic possibly bringing an end to civilizations.
Thank you for watching. Write in the comments section for your request as to what book, usually from Project Gutenberg, you want us to feature in U-Book channel.
Click like to boost the rating of U-Book channel, make a comment for us for the improvement of our services, and share this video to your friends, with the copyright intact. Please click subscribe, and hit the bell button to be notified of new uploads from U-Book channel.